So you're playing BattleBit and having a hard time getting kills. Close range, far range, or maybe even point blank. Trust me, it happens, but it's annoying if your aim makes you lose over and over and over again while putting up some less than desirable numbers. Don't worry, it happens to everyone, but if you're looking for some tips, this video is for you. This video is for one of our new subscribers, JoeCool2810, who wrote, "I'm okay on supportive gameplay, but struggle with gunplay. I figured I should make a video for them and any other viewers that are having some issues with their KDA. There are a lot of videos out there that tell you the same thing when it comes to aim training. Practice the same thing every day, use aimlats to track your progress, focus on flicking, get a higher DPI, etc, etc. Sometimes these tips are good, but they really do vary game to game. So this video is focused on helping you with just BattleBit. Maybe you could take it into another game and it helps, but its intention is for BattleBit. Now we can get started. For the first tip, slow yourself down. What happens often is that people will see these videos of ex-pro players or people who have played this game since beta run around the map at Mach 1 collecting kills as they go. So you think everyone is supposed to play like that, when in reality it's rare that someone just starting out can accomplish something like that, especially if this is your first FPS. So your first step to bettering yourself is to slow down. Enter buildings cautiously, swing corners, play safe, all things that will help you increase your kills while decreasing your deaths. And this method works better on defense. Set up angles, build barricades, basically bottleneck your enemies into coming onto sight through an angle you're holding. In this clip, I started off making an aggressive take on the current enemy occupied building, but even as I'm playing aggressively, you can see I'm peeking corners, checking around for enemies, clearing out possible locations with C4s, until I eventually take over the high ground, which is where I quickly swap to a defensive style. I set up a sandbag to protect my back, while the enemies can only attack me from an angle I have advantage of. I snag a bunch of kills while making sure my enemies cannot see me. I'm using this clip because it best emphasizes both playstyles properly. This clip is better at showing how to play it aggressively and easier to explain. The enemies are behind the wall laying down fire on my teammates on the bridge. While they're all distracted, I take my time to peek over the wall, get a few kills, then duck back into cover. Then it was a matter of rinse and repeat. I only died after my teammate blocked my vision and held the angle for too long, leading to some enemies jumping over and killing us. While this tip doesn't improve your aim, it helps your macro, which will lead to you raising your KDA. Something to add onto this tip is save your ammo. Don't shoot at every enemy you see. There will be moments where an enemy is in the open and you will think to yourself, "Oh, I can snag that kill." And you can do that, but there will be more times where they will just be too far for you to kill them without alerting more enemies to your position. And there's even more moments where you have the best flank on the enemy team and you'll think to spray them all down with one mag. Instead, quickly focus on the one that is most likely to kill you. Some that are looking at you, ones that are in the process of turning, or maybe they're already firing at you. Then after killing them, transfer your aim to look at the enemies that aren't looking at you. You might see a bunch of people turned around while one enemy is looking at you and think, well, I want to get the easier kills first so I can guarantee my death is worth it. But if you remove your biggest obstacle, the easy kills are still there and you end up with more than if you just traded the 1-for-1. For the next tip, and kind of keeping up with the last one as well, lower your sensitivity. Having control of your mouse is key for all FPS games, and unfortunately, people fall into the trap of having a high sense because they see the best players have a high DPI. But there's no point in having crazy high sense if you have no control over your camera or your character. Yes, having a higher sense makes it easier to flick, and yes, it makes it easier to turn around corners. But if you have little to no control over your camera, there's really no point in having a higher DPI. Before I divulge further, I want to explain what DPI and mouse sensitivity is. DPI is dots per inch, meaning how many pixels your cursor will move across your screen for every inch you move your mouse. Sensitivity in games translate to how fast you want your camera to move in respect to your DPI. Think of it like a multiplication problem, where DPI is then multiplied by whatever sensitivity you have in your games. Mind you, not all games have the same sensitivity settings, so I'd recommend using a DPI and sense converter when swapping games. With that out of the way, I'll tell you mine as an example. I run a pretty low DPI at 800 for all FPS games with a 0.7 sensitivity for BattleBit. And this is because I have a large mouse pad and I like to aim with both my arm and my wrist. If you have a smaller mouse pad, you might want to run a higher DPI. If you only aim with your arm, you might want to use a lower DPI than what I have, so on and so forth. But if you can't hit shots with your current sensitivity or DPI settings, then lower it until you reach a point where you can control your camera to follow the enemies in front of you. The next tip to help you is map recognition. And I have something embarrassing to admit, and it's that I didn't know the maps in the game until 4 months into me playing it. As embarrassing as it is, I couldn't put a map image or name to a certain spot. This would lead me to not know what angles to hold or sites to set up for. So that's where this lesson should help you out. Now, when I say recognize the maps, I don't mean remembering all the sites and angles to hold when on maps, but remember as much as your favorite spot to hold on each site. Recognize what angles are your favorite and where enemies like to run. Some easy ones would be like, oh, I'm playing Basra, I should hold C from on the top of the ship. Or I'm on Frugus, I could counter the snipers on rooftops, or I could run through Metro from C to F. These little recognitions will lead you to die less and get more kills, just knowing your favorite spots. Next tip, go to the shooting range. Get the one you want to practice with. Practice shooting the targets and go through the training ground. This allows you to experiment with bullet velocity, fire rate, recoil control, aim, and more with this one in-game tool. I could tell you to download Aim Labs or any other aim training software and say, use this to practice your tracking, use it to work on peeking, use it to practice your leading. However, I don't like to tell people to do this. Not because it doesn't work, but because it's usually a completely different experience than if you played the game. Some exercises on aim training apps are actually really useful, but for the most part, you don't need to practice grid shot or 3x3 to get better at aiming. Experiencing the game and each gun's intricacies allow you to truly feel your progression. But would this all even help you? To see huge progress, you need to train your aim every day. Some people even say that training for an hour a day isn't enough. Others say you could train 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours a day and you won't see an improvement. So what does that mean to you? Does that mean you'll train for 6 hours? More? Or does it mean to just give up trying to be better? After all, life gets hard sometimes. Some people get lucky playing games at all, let alone every day. How could you improve when every day players in your favorite game are getting better and better, and you can't see any improvement? I'm bringing this up because I, for a long time, had this issue. Not exactly with BattleBit, or just games in general, but with myself. I asked myself all the time, is it even worth my time to get better when everyone will just be better than me anyways? Should I sacrifice my mentality just to be better at video games? It's a tough question, especially if you want to see real progress with your training. So this leads me to my next and final tip. Don't be too hard on yourself. You don't have to force yourself to practice or play every day. Once a week, once a month, even once a year, I guarantee you'll see improvement. It will start subtle, but sometimes you won't even see it at all. But soon, it will stack up. It might take you a month to look back and realize I went from going 14 to 16 to 40 and 8 every game. And don't get me wrong, you'll always have bad days. Days where it feels like you end all of your matches negative or where you never get a win. But there's more to a game than winning or going positive. BattleBit is a game, one meant to be played casually and to have fun. Yes, there are people who try with everything to win or be the best on their team, but in the end, it's up to you for what counts as an improvement, a win, and fun. To me, it is worth getting better at a game I like to play, because rather than me fixating on my practice as only getting better, I'm focusing on how much fun I've had doing it. I haven't had a moment when I'm playing where I sit back and think, this isn't worth doing right now. There isn't a night where I think, wow, I can't believe I went negative in all the games I played today. Because I'll remind myself, I had that one sick play, or I learned a new spot to use in the future, and even I'm sure someone heard my mic and laughed. If training your aim is causing you stress, if not doing well is causing you stress, then take a break. It's all right to admit when you're doing bad, but don't let having a bad time stop you from having fun. This is a fun, loud, chaotic game that is meant to be played for enjoyment. So why should you stress yourself out with something that you wouldn't even think is worth it? So with that, I leave it to you. I do hope my points help you with your games and maybe even your mentality going forward. And with all that being said, my name's Rum, and I'll see you next time.